Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. It is hump day. Chilly hump day today. Currently 34 degrees, and it's pretty much going to hang out around 34 degrees. We got a 40% chance of snow or a wintry mix this morning and maybe later on this evening as well. 6:01 is the sunrise. 7:35 is the sunset. So we got a very chilly spring day. This is the cooler end of spring around here. And so, let's see, we've been in the study of John, and we're in John chapter 19. And Jesus has taken his cross to the place called Golgotha, which is the place of the skull. And on the way, in God's sovereign will, he brought along Simon the Cyrenian, and the Cyrenian is a man from a city in Africa coming along, and so he's pretty far from the Jews, right? Who have delivered him over to Pilate, and in God's sovereign will, he can use and choose anybody, right? He can use and choose anybody for the um, for the furthering or the carrying out of um, his plan, right? And furthermore, he can choose anybody he wants to come to him, right? From wherever he wants them to come. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. So, um, the cross. He's brought it to Golgotha. There in chapter 9, verse 18. There they crucified him, and with him two others, one on either side, and Jesus between them. Pilate also wrote an inscription and put it on the cross, and it read, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." And many of the Jews read this inscription, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Aramaic, in Latin, and in Greek. Now, as I think, Jesus's discussion with the men on the cross kind of takes place as this is happening. If I had to put it somewhere, it would come in between verse 20 and 21 here of John. And so that's Luke 23. And so in Luke 23, verse 39, one of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, "If thou be Christ, save thyself and us." But the other answering rebuked him, saying, "Dost not thou fear God, saying thou art in the same condemnation?" How do you not? So he's the one of the malefactors is saying, "How do you not fear God right now, right? Seeing that you are under the same condemnation as him, as Jesus. How do you not fear that when you're under the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward for our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss." See, Jesus didn't do anything amiss, wrong. He had no guilt. Even Pilate found no guilt in him, right? We saw he was found innocent in the Roman court. Okay, he was found innocent in the Roman court, and he said unto Jesus, "Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." And Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto you, today shalt thou be with me in paradise." And it doesn't matter when somebody comes to the Lord, when somebody comes to that saving faith, when somebody gets that word of and faith comes. Maybe they get the word way earlier, and something happens in their heart. God opens their heart to faith in that word, and it could be on their deathbed when Jesus comes for them, and they believe in him and they know him, right? And they know him. It doesn't matter when. At that moment, you will be with him in paradise. Come on, what a loving God we have. What a loving God. So anyway, I suspect that that is taking place while Pilate is having this conversation with the Jews about the inscription. And so the chief priests of the Jews, this is verse 21 now, 1921, says, Pilate, do not write the king of the Jews, but rather this man said, I am the king of Jews. Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. What I have written, I have written. See, remember in Pilate's encounter, it's me, I suspect, he started to believe. He started to believe. Now, maybe he recognized Jesus as the king of the Jews, or as Messiah, or has come from heaven, and not known him, not been willing to keep his commandments at the time, right? Not being a disciple of the Lord. But I suspect he knew who he was. Right? I suspect he knew who he was. Did he have faith? I don't know. And we might find out someday. We might find out someday. So, what I've written, he says. And when the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his garments and divided them into 4 parts, 1 part for each soldier, also his tunic. But the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. So they said to one another, let us tear it and cast lots for it to see whose it shall be. This was to fulfill the scripture which says, they divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. So the soldiers did these things. So the soldiers did these things. Now, that's a quote from Psalm 22:18. Psalm 22:18. But standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. A lot of Marys, right? There's a lot of Marys. Notice these are not the Mary, sister of Martha and Lazarus. Okay, these are not those Mary, that Mary, but Mary, his mother, and Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the wife of Clopas, they were there. And when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved, John, standing nearby, he said to his mother, woman, behold your son. Then he said to the disciple, behold your mother. And from that hour, the disciple took her as his own, took her to his own home. So Jesus made sure Mary was cared for, right? He cared for her safety, right? Made sure he cared for her safety. So my question, I guess, where's Jesus' physical brothers at? He had physical brothers. Where are they at? His physical mother is there, right? I guess I don't know. I don't know. Then so here, in Matthew 27, what we don't see is the Eli Eli Sakbaktini statement, right? So that's in Matthew 27:43 through 50. Now that falls in place here. I'm not going to go there for time's sake, because we got a lot of ground to cover. We're only in the middle of chapter 19, and we got to get through 21 by Friday. So after this, Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said to fulfill the scripture, I thirst. He said, I thirst. A jar full of sour wine stood there, so they put a sponge full of the wine on a hyssop branch and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. He bowed his head and gave up his ghost. Now, a lot more happens, and I encourage you to read the Matthew passage, because the darkness, right? Darkness fell. The veil was torn in twain. The graves were opened. So a lot happens. A lot of uh, a lot of spiritual um, things present in the physical world that are recorded in Matthew. But again, I'm not gonna go there because we still have a lot to go, and we're running out of time. So Jesus' side is pierced. So since it was the day of preparation, and that the bodies would not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for the Sabbath was a high day, the Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. So the rush on this, remember, it was to keep um, themselves spiritually clean or ceremonially clean for the Sabbath and the Passover meal. They were in preparation for the Passover. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. So the two other malefactors, right? My chair is sinking. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once there came out blood and water. Now, I was studying a commentary, or I can't remember exactly where it was that I read it, but that blood and water, apparently when somebody's dehydrated, their body holds whatever water is in it, and so when he died and they stabbed him, that water that was there that he was holding because he was dehydrated, remember he said, "I am thirsty," came out with the blood. I don't know, I'm not a doctor. That's something I've read is when I was studying, like, did this really happen? And that is something that really happens. So this, there's medical evidence as well as the eyewitness accounts. Um, you guys, Jesus really was hung on a cross. He really did die, and he really did come back and show himself to witnesses. This really happened. Okay? This really happened. And the agony is not, I can't express it enough, the strength that this man had to be able to be beaten. If you watch The Passion, the Mel Gibson movie, it's not even, that doesn't even do it justice. Okay, that doesn't even do it justice. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once there came out blood and water. He who saw it has borne witness. His testimony is true, and he knows that he is telling the truth, that you also may believe. Now he who saw John, right? John, he was there. He was there with his mom, right? He saw it. For these things took place that the scripture might be fulfilled. Not one of his bones will be broken. Remember, they didn't break his legs, so that the scripture will be fulfilled, right? And that's comes out of Exodus and Numbers. Exodus 12:46 and Numbers 9:12. Okay, that's where that scripture is. And again, another scripture says, they will look on him whom they have pierced. So the soldiers looking on him, Zechariah, that's Zechariah 12:10. Then they buried Jesus. All right, they buried Jesus. We'll get into that. So that's John. We made it up to John 19:37 through 19:37. All right, guys, have a good day. Remember, the Lord is sovereign, and he works all things for the good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And so if he's chosen you, be willing to pick up the cross, y'all. Be willing to pick up the cross.